Laufen wir? Schlägt aus? Passt? Ja? First of all, Shawn, I want to know, how does it feel to be in Prague as the new, well-deserved and reigning Mr. Olympia? Or did you realize in the last, it has been 2 weeks ago?
Yeah. I'm still waiting for that knockout Mr. Olympia blow to happen in the middle of the night when, I wake up crying, to my wife and daughter. But it hasn't hit me yet. But it's a great feeling to know that once again, I went up against Mr. Olympia, Phil Heath, 7-time champion, and came out on top. I've been going at this at the Olympia since 2011. I've been in the top since 2012, and I've stood next to Phil Heath quite a few times, walking away a few times with third in 2016, second. So, man, to be here in Prague as Mr. Olympia, it's a great feeling.
I'm pretty sure it's a great feeling. I mean, I really have to say, like, the people who were watching the live stream, I think the live stream didn't really show what was going on, what was happening in Vegas. You had to be there in live. I have to say this was really the best. And I didn't miss one Olympia or one big show that you entered. This was the best I have ever seen of you, and was a really nice direction for bodybuilding, and really well deserved. It was really like I wanted to put the camera away and just enjoy the show, really. I mean, also respect to Phil, to Rami, to Ruli. This was really like, after I remember 2009 when Jay came back, the title, this was really like a special Olympia, and 2018 was pretty close to this.
This year, man, after watching the guys last year, with everything that I went through, and I watched the guys climbed up the ranks, and, the William Bonac came in looking unbelievable. I saw Rolly won, Arnold Australia this year, and, Big Ramy was second last year, and of course, Phil Heath. I went home and, I spoke to Chris, right after the Olympia, and, we were like, what are we going to do different? Like, what can we do different? And, I know this might sound a little bit cliche, but I remember Chris saying to me, listen, Shawn, this year we're just going to focus and bring in the best Shawn Rhoden ever. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, wow, we brought some really good package to the Olympia and to many shows over the years. What do you mean the best Shawn Rhoden? He goes, next year we're going to show them something that's yet to be seen. And that coming from Chris Aceto, that I've worked with many top pros, worked with Jay Cutler, I was like, okay, whatever it is, Chris, I'm all in. And he says, just stay in your own lane, put your blinders on, and send me pictures every day.
That's pretty good.
So I send him pictures every morning I wake up from day one of prep. And I know this might seem different from, a lot of different coaches, but day one, he sent my diet over. And I send pictures every morning. Every morning I wake up 4:30. I take pictures. I send to him. I do my cardio, and I wait for him to send my diet for that day. And it's been like that all prep. And he was just making just small adjustment. And I think it was around July, the end of July, first week in August. Jim Manning was in LA, and he took a look at me, and he'd said some very encouraging words, and I called Chris and I said, hey, I just spoke to Jim. I was like, I'm coming to Tampa, because he was at the Tampa Pro. I was like, I'm coming to Tampa so you could see me. And the next morning I bought a ticket and hopped on a flight, to go to Tampa, because I've been sending pictures to Chris, and it's a little bit different when you're looking at someone in person. So I wanted him to see exactly where I was. So I went down, I looked at him, and he says, I know exactly where you're at. I know exactly what I need to do. And within 2 weeks, I watched my body just change into something different. And I got to Vegas the Saturday before the Olympia, and I looked like I did in 2016 on stage.
On Saturday already.
And it was just such a great feeling where I don't think I've ever been so relaxed. Because I kept saying, okay, this is Saturday. We have an entire week. And he was like, okay, Shawn, it's only Saturday. And we use that motto every day. It's only Saturday. It's only Sunday. It's only Monday. You know, the entire week just fine tune in and, you know, training in Vegas. I saw you out in Vegas at the Lift Factory, and, you know, I had no care in the world because I knew that we were going to bring something different. And I watched my body even change more and more to the point where I was so freaking dry in the room, the bottom of my feet cracked. I know that might sound crazy, but I remember getting up one morning and I stepped in the floor and I was like, what? And I looked and cracked straight down the bottom of my feet, my heels. And I was walking next door to Chris' room, and he could tell. There's a video up in line where it looks like I was gingerly walking down the hallway to get to his room, and he was like, "You're walking in the bone of your feet, right?" And I was like, he goes, "This is going to be a good one." And I went to his room and I posed, and, you know, I've never seen him this excited before. And I've been working with him since 2012, but it was just unbelievable feeling to see your coach, to see my family. And, you know, there are times my wife thought I should have went to the hospital because I looked like I was dying because I just didn't want to talk to anyone. But, you know, we did everything that we could have possibly done for this year Olympia. And I'm just so happy at the end result. And I think to hear the audience scream at the end when it says "and you," and to look down and see everyone still standing, for me that was an unbelievable feeling, because I've been at a few Olympias where the winner was announced and everybody walks out. So for me to look down and see everyone still standing there clapping and cheering, you know, I was just like, yes, judges make a good decision, they make the right decision.
Absolutely, and I mean, this moment was really so. I mean, once in a lifetime. This was so special, the audience and everything, and incredible Olympia. But did you expect you will win? I mean, before you were really confident. What we have not seen from you before, especially at the press conference or in videos before, talking about Phil and stuff like that. Did you really expect you will win?
I could tell you guys this. In getting ready for the Arnold, I had 2 bleeding ulcers and I had to pull out. And I saw something that I've never seen with my physique before. And it kind of opened my eyes because we changed our training a little bit differently. You know, I started training 2-a-days. We were doing a little bit different with nutrition and how I was consuming some of my meals. And, you know, this prep, I just had this feeling where I was like, I've been here so many freaking times. Like, I've studied all the competitors, even Dennis Wolf. Got a picture of Dennis Wolf on my wall. Because I'm like, you know, what if Wolf come back? You know, can't forget that factor. But I've studied these guys so much where in my mind I'm like, okay, I've seen my physique in 2015. And I told myself, if I could best that look, it's going to be hard for anyone to beat me. So I think it was I saw some pictures of Phil online in Pittsburgh, and I was like, wow, he's a little bit smaller. I'm like, okay. With Phil being a little bit narrower up top, if he's smaller, then you take away that I'm going to outmuscle your 3D wow factor. And I'm looking at myself, and I'm like, wow, this is the best me. Like, I need to walk out here at this Olympia and just don't give a shit. I was like, I need to walk out here with the confidence, because I spoke to Jay back in 2012, and he was the first one that kind of installed in my head if I want to be Mr. Olympia. Because, you know, when you make it to the Olympia the first time, you're not thinking you want to be Mr. Olympia. You just go, I hope I make it back to the Olympia. And here I am at 2 o'clock in the morning, and Jay is asking me, do I want to be Mr. Olympia? So it kind of stuck to my head, and over the years, he's, you know, pushed a couple of buttons trying to remind me why I'm on stage and what I'm doing. And he came out to LA early in the year, and we did an interview, and he goes, I want you to be real. Tell me how you really feel. Just interview, like, just don't be diplomatic. Just speak your mind. Like, how do you really feel about this year? And it just kind of hit me. I don't care. Like, my goal was to beat Mr. Olympia. And if I'm holding back and suppressing those feelings, because listen, Philly's a trash talk, and I think a lot of people are afraid of what he might say when they open their mouth. But for me, I didn't care. I was like, I know I was going to bring something great to the Olympia, and I know I could back it up. So I went out there and just said to myself, especially at the press conference, exactly how I felt, because I know I was going to walk out on the stage, and with the way I was going to look, it was either going to be between me and him or me and Big Ramy. So I went out there, and as we were posing the presentation, I kept looking over, and I was like, oh shit, like I could really win this. Absolutely. It's like, even after Friday night, everyone was saying, hey, you know what, Shawn could win the Olympia. I went back to my room, and I kind of blocked everything out, and I looked at Chris, and we both said the same thing at the same time. It's only Friday. And he goes, you'll be better tomorrow. And I was like, okay. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, man, Philly's Mr. Saturday night. Like,
that's right.
So you always have to keep that in the back of your mind and not overthink and get too emotional to think you already won, because I've seen him come back on Saturday night and look unbelievable. You're like, what the hell happened? So I just had to, keep my composure and just stay focused, and knowing that it wasn't over and I still have to be better on Saturday night. And if I could come in just a tad bit better on Saturday night, I know I could battle Philly if he came in at his best.
How tough was this preparation compared to last year? I mean, last year wasn't, how should I say it? It wasn't probably not the best or the easiest preparation for you?
I'm not going to say this year was easy, because last year was, can I say a bitch? Last year was a bitch.
I think that's probably right.
Last year was a struggle. Last year was flipping a coin. Am I going to make it? Flipping a coin. Should I do it? This year it was like, okay, I had 8 blood transfusion from my 2 bleeding ulcer. I had a broken jaw from the last Olympia. I'm like, what else could go wrong? So you take away those factors and you clear your mind, and knowing that you have a great supporting cast, your family's behind you, you have Chris Cedar in your corner, and you have Psycho Fitness that's going to beat the crap out of you, and a training partner that was hungry and happy that he was going to the Olympia and stand him on. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to think about anything. I'm just going to go to the gym. I'm going to train. I think the hardest part for me this Olympia was I started just prep driving 2.5 hours every day to the gym and 2.5 hours back home.
Really?
But again, I had the mind frame of I'm going to treat it like it's a 9-to-5 job, and I have to leave my house in the morning to go to work, and work is over and I have to drive back home. And that's not crazy.
No, I think that's pretty smart.
It kept me focused and grounded as if I'm going to work, and that was it. I didn't get caught up in, oh my God, I'm going to the Olympia. It was like, okay, I'm going to work. And every morning I did the same thing. I get up in the morning, I did cardio, say bye to my family, I get in my car. I drove 2.5 hours to Gold's Gym in LA from Santa Barbara, train, eat a meal, get in my car, and turn around and drive back home. But I was so motivated for this year that it didn't bother me. It didn't seem as if I was driving 2.5 hours every day. It just seemed as if I was going to work. And I get back home, and I did the stuff that I would normally do, just being home and not worrying about being a bodybuilder. And it wasn't until maybe the last 4 or 5 weeks that we decided, okay, now you're doing cardio and you're doing, you're posing and all that stuff. It's best if you stay in LA and train. And even then, I still treat it like I was get up in the morning and going to work. So yeah, this year prep, I was a little bit more at ease, a little bit more focused, and I had no stress.
And what's next, or what is in how you will do it in 2019, or what will happen? Do you think Phil will take a year off and come back just in 2020, or you think he will be back in next year?
That's the $1 million question.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. You know what I think? What is the $1 million question? Who was checking Shawn's account? Will be Kai back in 2019?
And that's what I wanted to say. For me, the ideal situation would be, I know this might sound crazy because I can't even believe I'm saying it, but the ideal situation for me would to have Kai Green, Phil Heath, Dennis Wolf, Shawn Rhoden. Because that was 2012, 2013, 2014. In my mind, that's what I would love to see on stage.
If this will happen, I could retire.
But you know, I'm a big fan of Dennis. I've known Dennis before he turned pro, and I think me and Dennis have had quite a few great battles that I enjoy being on stage with him. And I've never actually beaten Kai.
It's time.
You know, so it would be great to be on stage again with those guys, because I think I had so much fun, and you know, to be able to be on stage with, in my mind, the best of this era. You know, I would love for that to happen. But until 2019, we're just going to have to wait and see. I know for sure I will be 25% better than I was this year.
25?
25%. I like to set the bar a little bit high. A lot of people tell me I'm crazy, but if you could just reach up and grab the bar, then it's not worth it. I want to challenge myself to be 25% better next year and bring the best Shawn Rhoden.
I'm pretty sure you should not miss the 2019 Mr. Olympia with that.
Kai will be back. Phil will be back. Gonna have to talk Dennis to coming back.
That would be crazy.
That would be awesome. Maybe Jay could come
back. Jay, do you have a second when you finish the interview? Because we have 4 more Olympia titles in the room, so we should ask him about his opinion.
Ambassador himself, the one and only Mr. There's no one like Jay Cutler. And they'll.
Should I tell you something? Jay is one of the reasons why I fell in love with bodybuilding. He was my biggest motivation when I had the DVDs. You know, the times when you were still buying DVDs and people were training for 4 hours on the DVD, nothing else, no social media. Yeah. Here he is.
Well, it's because of this. As if, you know, I was motivated enough to say a lot of crap this year and piss a few people off, because, you know, when you're dealing with Jay, you know, Jay seems to know how to put the right questions in your head without you knowing it. And when you're in his presence, sometimes you feel that, hey, you know what, I'm Jay Cutler, Mr. Ambassador, I'm Jay Cutler, Mr. Olympia. Mr. Rhoden, do you want to be Mr. Olympia? You know, so I'm thankful that I had the opportunity of knowing someone like Jay, and, you know, Jay making a comeback in 2019, I think is pretty awesome.
Ooh, when we add Jay to the lineup, that Shawn next year, Shawn had Kai, Dennis, Phil, him, and now Jay. This would be pretty crazy.
I would buy a ticket to see that. Definitely. I would actually purchase a ticket just so I could watch that.
The sad part is you still win. So it's not so good for all us guys, all us formers and aspiring ones that want to win the title. No, I'm really happy for Shawn. I was super excited that night, and of course it made us look that much better, because obviously we had a long conversation many years ago when he started his quest, and I think under the tutelage of Chris Aceto was a huge stepping stone for him, and I think that was the reason for our discussion. He says, I'm ready to win this now. I'm working with Chris Aceto. They just started working together at the time, and I knew right away, okay, this guy's going to be something special. But when he won a couple weeks ago, was it 2 weeks now? I knew he won. I knew he was going to win, so I had full confidence. And I was sitting around people that were questioning, you think he's got it? I said, yeah, he's got it. And everyone knows I had my relationship with Phil for many years. Phil Heath was kind of under me. He was my guy, and you know, he worked his way up, and of course overcame me to win the Mr. Olympia. I was injured that year, and I still felt I would have won 5, but he did. I think that was his best year. Phil Heath was his best in 2011. We haven't seen the greatest Phil Heath since then. And Shawn, of course, obviously had a couple close calls with him that are questionable, which I think all Mr. Olympias have. But what Shawn represented 2 weeks ago was something that got people excited about bodybuilding again, because, listen, he's not a mass monster. Although he has a tremendous amount of size, he has balance and he has symmetry, and he doesn't have anything that you sit there and say, wow, he's got this outrageous body part. I mean, a lot of the detail is, but You know, Shawn has a balance that we haven't seen on a Mr. Olympia in a lot of years. And people may look at that as like, okay, can he retain the title being challenged by the mass monsters? And people say, is bodybuilding changing? Is it becoming more of an aesthetic thing? But he's kind of a crossbreed, and I think that's the Flexitron type thing, because he is not just a symmetry guy. He's not just an aesthetic guy. He has the mass. I mean, his legs are world class. I don't know if there's anyone on that stage that can compete with his legs, although it's not an overpowering body part for him. I mean, he has the shoulder width. And we talked about that in an interview we did prior 3 weeks to the Mr. Olympia, and I think he mentioned that. And I think it's the most viewed video on my YouTube channel right now, because he predicted why he was going to win the show, and it made him look very confident. And people may have took that as a little arrogance, and we know Shawn's personality. He's not arrogant at all. Probably the most humblest champion we have, if you know, recently, and if not ever. He was able to basically say, I am going to win on this. And I actually asked him, I said, maybe you don't want to expose what you plan to do. And he says, no, I'm not afraid to say so. And people may have took it as kind of off the wall a little bit, because he called out a couple of Phil's shots, and he exposed Phil Heath, and he challenged him on the poses where he said, you know, Phil may have still challenged him highly on the back shots, but Shawn brought it. You know, he was prepared. And Phil, was it the best Phil Heath ever? I just mentioned 2011 was the best Phil Heath. I didn't beat Ronnie Coleman as the best Ronnie Coleman either, but it's not about that. It's about who stands on that stage, 2018 Mr. Olympia, and have the confidence. And I told Shawn, I said, the most important thing you can go up there is just to, like I said in 2012, act like Mr. Olympia. You have the confidence. You stand there. You finish the poses. You go through the poses. You transition. You look solid. And the thing where Shawn really exposed Phil Heath is the transitions, because he was able to stay tight in the transitions and keep the stomach tight and the abs tight. And people may say, oh, Shawn Rhoden with the ab shot won. But you know what? Shawn has probably the best midsection up there. So, of course, he's going to show off his strengths, okay? Just because the guy, I mean, it's like Phil, oh, he has the best back double bicep. So if I'm Phil, I'm going to put up that shot as much as possible, right? And so, because no one really can compete with it in people's eyes. And I said, you know what? I'm tired of hearing about this being a back show. We said it in the interview. I don't want to hear about Phil Heath's back, because it's one pose, okay? Back lat spreads, one pose. What about all the transitional things? People forget about that, because you can sit there and display all the Mr. Olympia's poses, whether they're 7, 8 poses, right? But you forget about the quarter turns, and the transitions mean so much. So people that sit at home and watch the videos and say, well, I think this guy should have won. Listen, until you're there watching the show, you cannot judge a bodybuilding contest, because the transitions and those quarter turns and the presentation means so much more than just hitting front double bicep or front lat spread. And listen, it's judgmental who wins, okay? But when a guy's in greater condition and he has the symmetry, the balance, and enough mass, not as mass as Phil Heath in a lot of shots. Let's be realistic. He's got, you know, great shoulders and arms, but Phil, you know, that's not going to win shows all the time. It's about the whole balance. And that's what Shawn brought, and that's what his strengths are. And you know what? He's going to be challenged. He's going to be questioned all year. But you know what? The Sandow's sitting in Santa Barbara. And, you know, congratulations on being the first. It was a jinx of the Gold's Gym Venice. No guy ever training out of that gym could win the Mr. Olympia, okay? And Shawn proved that wrong, okay? So he became the first, and I think the crowd, they were so happy. And, you know, it was very emotional for a lot of people around, because, you know, here's a guy that, you know, won his pro card, I believe, at 211. Okay, I thought it was 208 or something. And I remember back then him walking around and him being confident on, okay, I'm going to be dominant in this business. And, you know, you don't see that as much. I mean, you talk about Dexter Jackson starting as a bantamweight and coming up and beating me as, you know, become Mr. Olympia. And now you got Shawn Rhoden, who wins his pro card as a heavyweight, you know, at 211. And now it's competing over 240 pounds. You know, I don't know, closer to 250. But what a transition, man. What a great ride. And you know, we can talk about ages and maturity and everything else, but listen, Shawn's been on for years. I mean, he's won a lot of shows in between that Mr. Olympia, and it's so elusive sometimes because it is hard to knock the champ out, but, you know, you get tired of the same stories, and I think he felt that frustration that I felt. I think we can relate a lot because I had a lot of frustration, of course, getting through Ronnie Coleman, and then, of course, you know, losing the title to Dexter and come back and win it again. I mean, you just put your time in the gym, man, and he did it this year, and you know, now it's about walking the walk now and being Mr. Olympia. So, you know, congratulations. I know everyone's here excited to see him, and a lot of people proud of you, and you know, I'm one of those people. So congratulations to him, and you know, on to the next.
That's the reason why Jay is still one of the greatest ambassadors for bodybuilding, and like you said,
all the time,
yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Listen, you know, when I started bodybuilding, I wanted to look like Flex Wheeler. And over the years, from admiring and watching Jay Cutler, I'm like, I want to be like Jay Cutler. I want to have the body of Flex Wheeler, but act like Jay Cutler. You know, because I've seen Jay, man, and they're like, Jay Cutler, we need you on stage, and he's backstage shaking every single competitor hand. And I'm like, wow, you know. I see Jay retiring. Jay's at the military base, you know, visiting the troops, and I'm like, this man is retiring. He's still on the road promoting bodybuilding.
Absolutely. What is the most important thing about, or how can you become a good, a great ambassador for the sport of bodybuilding?
You know what? You got to love it. And it's funny because our conversation since he won the Mr. Olympia, he loves it, you know, and it's a lifestyle. And I tell everyone, like, people just, you know, I just did interviews and they're like, Jay, you know, why do you still look like you're in shape? And obviously I'm not in the competitive shape. I'm not planning to come back. So to whatever you guys say, I'm not getting back up there. So I love to train, and I have a passion about bodybuilding. I'm not a guy that's like a encyclopedia of bodybuilding. Like, I know the history, but someone like him who's admired it and he's watched it, he lives it, he breathes it. You know, he wants to be the best bodybuilder, but he also wants to be the greatest spokesperson, the ambassador. And there's you know, there's more that goes than that. I mean, it's just you have to have your own vision. And
we're back.
Okay, so yeah, so I mean, Shawn, I mean, everything's about being the leader, right? So guys are going to look at him for advice. The guys are going to look for him for, you know, his training techniques, and they're going to figure out, okay, how's the combination come together for him to win the Mr. Olympia? Because it's not by accident. It's not by default. When you have that much challenge up there, you know, you have something special. And I think he will have the most productive off season, and we won't see the same Shawn Rhoden we saw in 2018 on the 2019 stage, and that is in a positive way, because I think with a crazy off season, I just asked him on the way here, actually, when you going back to the gym? He says Monday when I get back to Venice. And I mean, you don't usually hear that from Mr. Olympias. They take a lot of time off. I know Phil took time off. I know Dexter Jackson took time off, Ronnie Coleman, but I'll tell you, Jay Cutler never took downtime. I was back in the gym training. Once the photo shoots were finished, I was back in the gym training. Not full capacity, but I was still training. Makes a huge difference.
It's back to the grind. You know, you know, I'm more motivated now than I was before.
If that's possible, right?
Because it's like everyone is like hearing the chatter, and I never let that get to me. It's like, oh, it's just a one-time thing. And I've heard that in my first pro win, that I was the one-hit wonder. You know, it's like I want to show 6 days later. And but I'm so much more motivated to go back to the Olympia with something different. And you know, Jay know Chris, and Chris is already scheming it already. He's like, you know, having this folder open, and you know, it's time to get back to the drawing board, because you know, he knows that for me, when I walk off stage, I left everything on stage no matter what happened, and it's time to get to the next chapter. And the next chapter is to present something next year where people are like, okay, you know, last year wasn't a fluke, you know, because I know I trained my ass off for this year, and I've enjoyed it, and I'm still enjoying it, but now it's time to go back to what I know I do best, and that's get back on the grind.
Well said. So thank you very much. I'm really looking forward to 2019. Jay probably will be also at the venue or at the show.
I'll be there. I'll be there front and center. Always.
We will not miss the show. How many? I mean, not only competing. How many Olympias have you seen right now? Do you remember?
Well, since '99, since it started in Vegas, because that was my first '99. So I've been at every one except 2002. I did not go to the show. That's the one I missed. I sat out and watched it from home, actually, and then I was disappointed I didn't compete because that's the year Ronnie came in smaller, and Kevin gave him a run that year, and Kevin was a lot smaller that year too. So after 2001, I probably could have won it in 2002, but I sat out. I was building my home in Vegas, and I'm just happy the way it worked out. You hear all those stories. Oh, you should have won. You could have won. It builds better character when you're second, and it's controversial, and it builds a great fan base. And I think when a guy just wins it too easy, it's not as much respected. So it's easy when you see a guy that walks in the first time and wins it straight through. I mean, Lee Haney's the only one that really ever. I mean, he placed I think poorly in his first Olympia, and then he just won it straight through, and he walked away at 31 years old. I mean, it's a different game now. But I'm excited to watch it. I mean, I'm excited to see these other guys too that are going to come up and try to challenge Shawn, and I'd love to hear how they're going to expose him. It's a different game. I mean, it's changing every year, and I think we have a lot of great athletes, but I don't see any of the younger guys coming up that are going to really challenge Shawn for the title. So it's going to be, I'm curious to see who the next challenger is going to be. It's hard to say, especially after this year, because based off last year, I mean, I had predictions that I thought Phil will win 8 based on what he's done. And then Rami or William Bonac would be second or third, and here Shawn sneaks in, and just little did I know his background of what had happened the last couple years. Now I know more because it wasn't talked about as much, but he walked in and took what he felt was his, and obviously displayed what was his with winning the Mr. Olympia title. So it's pretty cool to see that, and it's a huge story. You were 5th last year.
Yeah.
5th last year. And to come back from 5th to win, I mean, that's pretty damn awesome. I mean, I came from 8th to almost win it. Ronnie came from 9th to win it. And then, it's really hard for a guy to move up that many placings. Usually it's the guy that's knocking at the door that wins it, right? Phil was second to me, and then he won. Dexter was like top 3, and then he won. So it's pretty amazing that he was able to slide back in there and pick up what he's set out to do so many times.
Thank you very much. The last words are up to the reigning Mr. Olympia. And thank you very much, Jay, for the interview.
Well, it's great to be back here in Prague, and I'm very happy to once again be standing next to this young man here, this guy right here.
Oh, it's such a bad picture. I don't know where they get it from.
I'm not sure where they get this one from.
I have no idea.
This is not the guy I'm talking about. I was talking about this guy.
It's a different one.
But it's great to be here as the 2018 Mr. Olympia, and I've always had a lot of fun here in Prague, and I'm looking forward to getting back on the stage next year, and we're going to have a blast. I can promise you guys this. So for all you guys out there that didn't believe, the best is yet to come.